History of Partido Social Liberal, (PSL). PSL was founded as a social liberal party on October 30th in 1994 by Luciano Bivar, a Brazilian businessman. It advocated for less government intervention in the economy while advocating for increased government intervention in areas such as healthcare and the military. It was met with mixed success to begin with 320 councillors being elected in 1996, the party's first election. In 1998, Bivar was elected as the party's first federal deputy in the state of Pernambuco. This election also saw PSL gain 10 state deputy seats. In 2000, the party began to see increasing success with its election of 26 mayors and 487 councillors, and in 2002, the party elected its first governor in the states of Roraima. The party made its first bid for Brazil's highest office in 2006, with Bivar as its candidate. Bivar did not gain the seat this year, and the party saw limited success in other areas, electing no federal deputy and few state deputies. Elections continued to look like this for PSL, with occasional federal wins and numerous local or city level wins, until 2018, when Jair Bolsonaro successfully became the president of Brazil. In this same election, PSL elected 3 governors, 53 federal deputies, 76 state deputies, and 4 senators. It was far and away the greatest success PSL has ever seen in a Brazilian election. Late in 2019, following internal splits within PSL, Bolsonaro announced he would be splitting from PSL to found his own party, Alliance for Brazil. Bolsonaro is quoted as saying in Portuguese, "The guy," speaking in reference to Bivar, who he had splits with, "is burned to hell there. Forget this guy, forget the party." As of November 22nd, 2020, Alliance for Brazil had only received 9% of the necessary signatures to become an official Brazilian party. This makes Bolsonaro's attempt to begin his own party a failure. History of Jair Bolsonaro. Jair Bolsonaro was born in Sao Paulo to 2 Italian immigrants in 1955 on March 21st. He has 5 children, 3 of whom have followed in their father's footsteps and entered politics. But Bolsonaro says he made the decision to join the Brazilian military where he was 15. He later went on to become a captain in the Brazilian military. While in the military, he was a paratrooper, completing a military skydiving course with a paratroop brigade. He graduated from Agulhas Negras Military Academy in 1977, a prestigious military academy in Brazil, and he holds a degree in physical education, which he earned in 1983. Bolsonaro was accused of organizing a terrorist plot against the Brazilian military, as he had been critical of the military in the past, particularly in regards to the treatment of young soldiers. But he was acquitted in 1988 by the Superior Military Court in Brazil. Bolsonaro began his political career in 1989 as a councilman in Rio de Janeiro, where he worked with the Christian Democratic Party. From 1991 to 2018, Bolsonaro served as the federal deputy from Rio de Janeiro. However, during this time, he held this position under 3 different parties: PDC, Reform Progressive Party, PPR, and the Brazilian Progressive Party, PPB, which became known as the Progressive Party in 2003. On the Brazilian government's official website, Bolsonaro is listed as having affiliations with at least 9 different parties.
Jair Bolsonaro, current president of Brazil, first joined the PSL in 2018 after leaving the Social Christian Party. He became their presidential candidate immediately after and ran following the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff. With the induction of Bolsonaro to the party, the PSL shifted ideologies from social liberalism to social conservatism, with a heavy emphasis on economic liberalism and nationalism. Following Bolsonaro's acceptance to the party, the Livres left in protest. The Livres were the former main wing of the PSL and were made up by the more socially liberal members of the party. With their exit, the PSL was able to take a more conservative slant, appealing to Bolsonaro and his supporters. After this, Bolsonaro ran in 2018 on the PSL ticket, winning the presidential election handily. However, his time in office has been controversial, to say the least, plagued by party infighting. Bolsonaro left the PSL in 2019 to form a new party that he called the Alliance for Brazil. The Alliance for Brazil is not technically a political party yet, however, because Bolsonaro has failed to garner the signatures needed for creation of the party, and is now exploring joining an existing party. Bolsonaro left due to issues of the PSL leadership, namely Luciano Bivar, a former PSL presidential candidate for Brazil from 2006 and the current head of the PSL. Luciano Bivar. Current president of the PSL, he ran in 2006 for the Brazilian presidency, but lost with only 0.06% of the vote. Bivar has since then remained the party leader of the PSL until 2018, making his leadership span from 1998 to 2018 a 20-year uninterrupted rule. In 2018, he agreed to step down as PSL president in an agreement between Bolsonaro and Gustavo Bebiano. However, Bivar still had great power within the PSL, and when Bebiano was forced to resign as the PSL president after winning in the 2018 elections, Bivar returned as leader of the PSL. During Bolsonaro's administration, Bivar has famously butted heads with the Brazilian president, most notably in October 2019. In October 2019, Bolsonaro attempted to exert more control over the PSL as he felt that Bivar had too much power over the party's finances. So, he attempted to install his son, Eduardo Bolsonaro, as PSL's leader in the lower house. Originally, Eduardo was meant to be the Brazilian ambassador to the U.S., but his nomination was withdrawn so President Bolsonaro could exert more control over the PSL's war chest. This gamble, however, ultimately failed, and Bivar retained control of the party's finances, resulting in the expulsion of Bolsonaro and those loyal to him soon after. Bivar now returns as the undisputed head of the PSL. Gustavo Bebiano. Former leader of the PSL during Bolsonaro's campaign in 2018, he later became Secretary General of the presidency once Bolsonaro won. Because of this, he had to step down from his role as PSL president. Now, this was all agreed upon beforehand in an agreement between Bivar, Bebiano, and Bolsonaro going into the 2018 elections. However, what was not agreed upon was that Bebiano would be dismissed by Bolsonaro only weeks after inauguration due to a PSL campaign finance scandal. Later on, these very same campaign finances would become the breaking point between Bolsonaro and Bivar, resulting in Bolsonaro and his supporters leaving the party. Eduardo Bolsonaro. President Bolsonaro's third son and former leader of the PSL in the Chamber of Deputies, Brazil's lower house. Eduardo became the focal point of party infighting that began in October 2019 when his nomination for Brazilian ambassador to the U.S. was withdrawn so he could instead become leader of the PSL in the Chamber of Deputies. This move ultimately failed because Bivar retained legal authority over the party and its public financing, meaning deputies in the lower house could not vote for Eduardo's ascension to chamber leader without potentially being expelled from the party. And that is exactly what happened to Eduardo and his supporters. Shortly after he was nominated as chamber head for the PSL, he was suspended by PSL party leaders and eventually forced to leave the party in 2020. As it currently stands, he is exploring joining an existing party with his father if the Alliance for Brazil fails to garner the signatures needed to create the party.
The ideology of Bolsonaro stems directly from its leader, Jair Bolsonaro. He ran on a campaign which valued anti-corruption and anti-crime themes. His policy regarding military and police have shown this sense with large support for the military and police forces, even calling the time that Brazil faced military dictatorship magnificent. Following the massive corruption scandal that brought down the previous government of Brazil, his current ideology surrounding corruption is hardlined in eliminating it from the government in its entirety. He has emphasized that his anti-crime ideological perspective is in effect to promote stability within the country because of the many years of instability they have faced previously. Many have described him throughout his political career, but especially recently, as being a larger-than-life display of misogyny, anti-LGBTQ values, and racism. Many of these values stem from a very traditional Judeo-Christian value, which he has voiced many times. After winning his presidency, he declared to the people of Brazil that they were liberated from socialism, and he promised to unite the people, rescue the family, respect religions and their Judeo-Christian tradition, combat gender ideology, and conserve their values. After this, he instituted a new federal division of family values, which he put an ultra-conservative pastor in charge of as the Minister of Family Values. In line with his ultra-conservative values, Bolsonaro has also emphasized a disdain for the native population of Brazil and an outwardly racist tone towards Black Brazilians. His ideology aligns with the far right in many ways because of his belief in natural inequalities, a celebration of difference in hierarchy, and an emphasis on elitism. For this party, the inequalities lie within sex, gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, and religion. The people who are higher in society are those who are straight, cisgendered, non-native, and Judeo-Christian. Bolsonaro looks to eliminate, or at least silence, those who are not of this group with elitism and hierarchy. Overall, the ideology of Bolsonaro seems to ensure the superiority of those who exhibit the characteristics and values which Jair Bolsonaro exhibits himself.
Political relevance. Jair Bolsonaro came to power mainly from a combination of two issues: Brazil's population's deep dissatisfaction with their governmental system that mainly ran on endemic corruption, and segments of the population's deep unease at the drastic changes in the country over the past 2 decades. Corruption in Brazil is institutionalized and has a historic connection. The Brazilian state has always had a large role in its citizens' lives and in the social organization of the country. This, combined with political culture where rights were not taken by the citizens, but instead conceded to them by the state, led to an endemic culture of corruption at nearly all levels of government. Indeed, Brazil was ranked 69th out of 170 countries on the Corruption Index of International Transparency in 2012 to 2014. This culture of corruption came to a head in 2014 with the innocently named Operation Car Wash, an investigation into corruption that unearthed hundreds of cases and led to literally thousands of arrests. This investigation led directly into the impeachment of Brazil's President Dilma Rousseff, and which set off an ongoing political crisis in the country. This investigation directly espoused the deep corruption that had perpetrated throughout all Brazil's politics and society, and led to an angry backlash against the traditional political elite. It was in this environment that Bolsonaro rose to power. Secondly, Bolsonaro benefited from a deep unease of some segments of the population. Many people in Brazil were aghast and afraid at the rapid speed of change that the world was going through. Bolsonaro targeted those who had benefited from the commodity boom in the 2000s, which has seen economic growth in Brazil and the creation of a new, relatively prosperous middle class. These people had seen their gains from this time evaporate over the past decade, where the economy stagnated. These people were very susceptible to Bolsonaro's far-right rhetoric. Bolsonaro in power has proven to be a very divisive president. Even with his aforementioned advantages and the political climate benefiting him, Bolsonaro only managed to acquire 55% of the votes in the 2018 presidential election. Ever since his election, Bolsonaro has been struggling to keep his support. In fact, mainly due to his disastrous handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, his support has dipped below the majority. Bolsonaro also tried to jumpstart his own political party, Alliance for Brazil, but failed at gaining the necessary votes to do so. These factors, combined with the fact that Bolsonaro has left his original party that he gained the election with, has cast him adrift. He is one man, with no real party to back him, substituting on only his personal brand. However, he is still a potent political force to be reckoned with in the country's politics, despite having no formal party, and will be for the foreseeable future.